The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement. Representatives from 12 major species filled the massive chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center stage, Ambassador Crixnell of the Vorthak Empire stood tall, his 4 arms spread wide in triumph. 500,000 years ago today, Crixnell announced, his voice echoing through the hall. Our great ancestors did the galaxy a service. They removed the human pest from existence forever. The crowd cheered. Species that had never even heard of humans clapped their appendages together. The Vorthak had always been proud of this ancient victory. They told stories about it to their children. They built monuments celebrating it. The third planet of the Sol system, Crixnell continued, was home to a violent, primitive species called humans. They fought wars over small pieces of land. They polluted their own world. They could barely reach their own moon when our fleets arrived. More cheers filled the hall. The ambassador's chest swelled with pride. Our ancestors showed mercy by making their end quick, he said. The humans never knew what hit them. In just one day, their entire species was gone. No more humans, no more problems. The Galactic Council members nodded in approval. Earth was just a dead rock now, orbiting a yellow star in an unremarkable part of space. Nobody visited it anymore. There was nothing to see. Far away from the celebration, on a dusty frontier world called Kepler 442b, Dr. Taman Park wiped sweat from his forehead. He stood over an ancient dig site, carefully brushing dirt from stone carvings. His team had been working here for months, uncovering ruins from an old civilization. Taman, come look at this, called Dr. So-Young Kim from across the excavation site. She was kneeling next to a large stone tablet, her translation device working overtime. Tae-min walked over, his boots crunching on the dry ground. So-Young was one of the best language experts in the galaxy. If she was excited about something, it was worth seeing. What did you find? He asked. These symbols, she said, pointing at the carved stone. They're Vorthak, but they're really old. Maybe 500,000 years old. Taman raised an eyebrow. That's around the time they supposedly destroyed Earth. Exactly, So-Young said. And look what it says here. She pointed to specific symbols. It talks about a great victory over the humans of the third planet. That matches the official history, Tae-min said with a shrug. But look at this part. So-Young continued. It says the humans had ships beyond counting and weapons that bend space itself. Does that sound primitive to you? Tae-min leaned closer. The translation device flickered as it worked on the ancient text. More words appeared on the screen. It says the Vorthak lost 90% of their fleet. So-Young read aloud. But they claim total victory because they destroyed one world. One world? Tae-min asked. Just Earth? That's what it says. But if humans were so primitive, why did it cost the Vorthak almost their entire military to destroy just one planet? The two scientists looked at each other. Something didn't add up. There's more, So-Young said, moving to another section of the tablet. It mentions other human worlds, lots of them. But then it says these worlds went dark after Earth was attacked. Went dark? You mean they just stopped communicating? Maybe. Or maybe they went into hiding. Tae-min felt a chill run down his spine. He had always wondered about the official story. The Vorthak claimed humans were primitive, but then why did they need such a massive fleet to attack them? So young. What if the humans weren't actually destroyed? He asked quietly. What do you mean? What if they just disappeared? What if they're still out there somewhere? So Young looked around nervously. Even suggesting that humans might still exist was considered crazy talk in most parts of the galaxy. The Vorthak had made sure everyone knew humans were extinct. "We need to be careful what we say," she whispered. "But you might be right." As the day went on, they found more tablets. Each one told a different story than the official galactic history. The humans weren't primitive cave dwellers. They had advanced technology, they had many worlds, and most importantly, only one world was actually confirmed destroyed. "Look at this," Taman said, holding up his scanner. "These ruins aren't just Vorthak. There are human-style architectural elements mixed in." "Human architecture? How can you tell?" "Mathematical patterns. Humans loved certain number sequences. The golden ratio, Fibonacci sequences. These building foundations follow those patterns." So Young's eyes widened. "You're saying humans helped build this place? Or maybe they built it first, and the Vorthak just moved in later. They worked until the sunset." Every new discovery raised more questions. If humans were so primitive, why did their ruins show advanced mathematical knowledge? If they were all dead, why did some Vorthak records mention human colonies that simply went silent instead of being destroyed? That night, in their small camp, Taemin sent an encrypted message to an old friend. Captain Jae-Sung Lee ran cargo ships between star systems. He traveled everywhere and heard all kinds of stories. If anyone would know about strange rumors, it would be him. The message was simple. "Found something interesting about human history. Need to talk. Do you think we should report this to the Galactic Council?" So Young asked as they sat around their small heating unit. "Report what? That we found some old stones that contradict official history?" Taemin shook his head. "They'd either ignore us or tell us we're reading the translations wrong. But if humans are still alive somewhere, then they've been hiding for 500,000 years. That means they don't want to be found." So Young stared up at the stars. Can you imagine? A whole species living in secret for 500,000 years? What would they be like now? "I don't know," Taemin admitted, "but I have a feeling we're about to find out." Far above them, in the cold emptiness of space, something moved. It was too small for their instruments to detect, too quiet for their sensors to hear, but it was there, watching. And it had been watching for a very long time. The next morning brought a response to Tae-Ming's message. Captain Jae-Sung Lee would arrive in 3 days. He had stories to tell and questions of his own. As the two archaeologists continued their work, they didn't notice the small probe that observed them from orbit. They didn't see the data it collected about their discovery, and they certainly didn't know that their message to Captain Lee had been intercepted and copied. Someone else was interested in their work, someone who had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The truth about humanity was starting to surface, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Jae-Sung Lee's cargo ship dropped out of hyperspace with a familiar shudder. The wandering star wasn't much to look at, but she had carried him safely across the galaxy for over 20 years. His crew of mixed species barely looked up from their work as the ship settled into normal space. Jae-Sung checked his encrypted messages while his pilot guided them toward Kepler 442b. Taemin's message had been short, but it mentioned human history. That was enough to get Jae-Sung's attention. Most people in the galaxy thought humans were extinct. Jae-Sung knew better. He was human himself, though he rarely advertised the fact. His ship's registration listed him as unspecified humanoid which was close enough to the truth for most officials. Captain, called his navigator, a blue-skinned Rigelian named Vex 9. We're getting some strange readings from the planet's surface. What kind of strange? Energy signatures that don't match standard archaeological equipment. Someone's using advanced scanning gear down there. Jae-sung frowned. Tae-min had mentioned finding something interesting, but he hadn't said anything about using military-grade equipment. Take us down to the coordinates Dr. Park sent, he ordered. But keep the engines warm. I want to be ready to leave quickly if we need to. Meanwhile, on the ocean world of Aquanis, Dr. Yoon-ji Nam descended into the deep trenches in her research submersible. She was studying the strange coral formations that grew in perfect geometric patterns along the ocean floor. The patterns bothered her. Coral didn't naturally grow in mathematical sequences, but these formations followed complex equations that would challenge the best university students. Even stranger, the coral seemed to be artificial, but it was clearly thousands of years old. Computer, analyze the growth pattern of specimen group 7, she said to her submersible's AI. Analysis complete, the computer replied. Growth pattern follows a modified Fibonacci sequence with base alterations that suggest intentional cultivation. Intentional cultivation? By who? Unknown. However, the mathematical principles match architectural patterns found in pre-galactic civilizations. Eunji guided her submersible closer to the coral formation. As her lights illuminated the structure, she gasped. Hidden within the coral were metallic components, perfectly preserved by the ocean's chemistry. Computer, scan those metal pieces. Material composition unknown. Molecular structure appears to be artificially enhanced. Age approximately 500,000 years. 500,000 years. That was around the time of the supposed human extinction. But what would human technology be doing at the bottom of an alien ocean? She carefully extracted a small sample of the metal and placed it in her submersible's analysis chamber. The results made her hands shake. The metal wasn't just advanced, it was impossible. The molecular structure was unlike anything in current galactic science. It was as if someone had taken basic materials and rewritten the laws of physics to make them stronger, lighter, and more durable. Computer, cross-reference this material composition with galactic databases. No matches found. In current galactic technology records, searching historical databases. A pause. Partial match found in theoretical papers written by human scientists before the extinction event. Yoon-ji stared at the screen. Human scientists had theorized about this kind of material manipulation, but according to galactic history, they never had the technology to actually create it. So how was their theoretical technology sitting at the bottom of an alien ocean? Back on Kepler 442b, Captain Jae-sung met with Tae-min and So-young at their dig site. The three of them stood around a table covered with photos and translation printouts. The official story doesn't match what we're finding, Tae-min explained. These tablets suggest the humans were much more advanced than anyone admits. Jae-sung studied the translations carefully. As a human himself, he had always wondered about the true history of his species. The official galactic records were written by the Vorthak, and victors always wrote history to make themselves look good. What exactly are you saying? He asked. We think some humans might have survived, So-young said quietly. The Vorthak destroyed Earth. But there were other human colonies, lots of them, and they all just vanished after Earth was attacked. Vanished how? They stopped all communication, stopped all trade. It was like they just decided to hide. Jae-sung nodded slowly. He had heard rumors over the years, strange stories from deep space traders about finding impossible technology in abandoned systems. Tales of ships that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Most people dismissed these stories as space madness or smuggler fantasies. But what if they weren't fantasies? There's something else, Taemin said. He showed Jae-sung a star chart they had found carved into one of the stone tablets. This shows not just the Sol system, but dozens of other star systems. All of them have special markings. What kind of markings? We're not sure. But they're all systems that the galactic maps list as empty or unexplored. Jae-sung felt his pulse quicken. Empty systems were perfect places to hide. And if humans had been hiding for 500,000 years, they would have had time to develop incredible technology. Captain, So Young asked, in all your travels, have you ever seen anything that might be human-made? Jae-sung hesitated. He had seen things, strange things. But admitting that would mean admitting he believed humans might still exist, which could be dangerous. Maybe, he said finally. I've seen technology that doesn't match any known galactic species, but I always assumed it was from some unknown alien race. What if it wasn't alien at all? Taemin asked. What if it was human? Before Jae-sung could answer, his communicator buzzed. It was Vex 9 from the ship. Captain, we're picking up a transmission. It's encoded, but it's definitely directed at our location. Can you decode it? That's the strange part, sir. It's already decoded. It's in standard galactic, but the encryption method is completely unknown. Jae-sung, Taemin, and So Young looked at each other. What does the message say? Jae-sung asked. It just gives coordinates to another star system, and it says, the Watchers have seen your work. The three of them felt a chill. Someone had been monitoring their research, someone with technology, advanced enough to break through standard military encryption like it was nothing. Should we go to those coordinates? So Young asked. It could be a trap, Taemin warned. Or it could be the proof we're looking for, Jae-sung said. If humans really are still alive out there, maybe they want to make contact. That night, as they prepared to leave Kepler 442b, none of them noticed the small probe that had been watching them from orbit. It had recorded everything they said, every discovery they made, and now it was transmitting that information to receivers throughout the galaxy. The message was simple. The secret is no longer safe. Prepare for revelation. In the deep reaches of space, ancient installations began to wake up. Technology that had been dormant for centuries started to hum with power. And throughout the galaxy, humans who had been living in hiding for 500,000 years received the same message. The time for secrecy was ending. Dr. Yoonji Nam's submersible broke the surface of Aquanus's ocean just as the first stars appeared in the evening sky. She had no idea that her discovery of impossible human technology was part of a much larger awakening. And in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Crix Nell received a troubling report from Vorthak Intelligence Services. There were rumors spreading about human survivors, archaeological discoveries that contradicted official history. For the first time in 500,000 years, the Vorthak Empire felt a flicker of fear. The humans were coming back. Commander Sung Ho Yoon's supply run to Station Omega-7 was supposed to be routine. The old station sat in an empty star system, abandoned decades ago when the mining operations ended. Sung Ho used it as a supply depot for his long-range scouting missions. But as his ship approached the station, something was different. Computer, scan the station, he ordered. Station Omega-7 is showing active power signatures, his ship's AI reported. Life support is online. Multiple systems are activating. That was impossible. The station had been dead when he visited it 3 months ago. There was no one else in this system. No ships, no colonies, nothing. Computer, are there any other vessels in the area? Negative. No ships detected within scanner range. Sung-Ho docked with the station carefully, keeping his hand near the emergency undocking controls. The airlock cycled normally, but he could hear the hum of machinery that definitely hadn't been running before. Inside the station, lights were on. The air was fresh. And there was a message waiting for him on the main computer terminal. "Welcome, Commander Yoon," the message read. "We have been waiting for you." Sung-Ho's blood ran cold. Nobody knew he used this station. He had never filed flight plans or told anyone about his supply depot. The message continued. "Please proceed to Section C, Level 12. All will be explained." Against his better judgment, Sung-Ho followed the instructions. The station's corridors looked the same as always, but now they were lit and heated. Elevators that had been broken for years worked perfectly. Section C, Level 12, led him to a door he had never seen before. As he approached, it slid open to reveal a room that definitely hadn't existed on his last visit. Inside, holographic displays filled the air. Star charts, technical diagrams, and what looked like surveillance footage from dozens of different worlds. At the center of it all was a projection of an elderly human woman. "Hello, Commander," the hologram said. "My name is Admiral Chen Weiling. I died 200 years ago. But I left this message for someone like you." Sung-Ho stared at the hologram. "Someone like me?" "A human who travels the galaxy. Someone who might stumble across the truth about our people." "What truth?" The hologram smiled sadly. "The truth that we never really died. We just learned to hide very, very well." The displays around the room changed, showing images of human colonies throughout the galaxy. Underwater cities, hidden asteroid bases, settlements built inside hollow, moons, all of them thriving, all of them invisible to galactic sensors. After the Vorthak attacked Earth, Admiral Chen's recording continued, the survivors realized we needed to disappear. We couldn't fight them directly. They were too strong, and there were too many of them. So we chose a different path. "You went into hiding," Sung-Ho whispered. "More than that. We became ghosts. We developed technology that could hide entire star systems. We learned to live in places no one else would think to look. And we waited." "Waited for what?" "For the right time to return. For the galaxy to mature. For people like you to start asking the right questions." Sung-Ho looked around the room at all the displays. There were hundreds of human settlements, maybe thousands. They had been living and growing for 500,000 years, completely hidden from the rest of the galaxy. "Why show me this now?" he asked. "Because the secret is starting to come out," the hologram replied. "Archaeological teams are finding evidence. Scientists are discovering human technology. The time for hiding is almost over." Meanwhile, on the medical station orbiting Centauri Prime, Dr. Hyewan Choi made a discovery that would change everything. She was analyzing genetic samples from different species throughout the galaxy, looking for common diseases that might affect multiple populations. It was routine work that usually produced routine results, but today's results were anything but routine. "Computer, run the genetic analysis again," she said, staring at her screen in disbelief. "Analysis confirmed." The computer replied. "Subject species designated Aquarians share 89.7% genetic similarity with archived human DNA samples. 89% similarity. That was impossible. Different species from different worlds couldn't be that genetically similar unless they were actually the same species. Computer, expand the analysis to include all species in the database. She waited while the computer processed millions of genetic profiles. When the results appeared, she had to sit down. 17 different species throughout the galaxy showed significant genetic similarity to humans. Not just similarity, they were clearly related. They were all human, just adapted to different worlds over thousands of generations. The Aquarians adapted to life underwater, she whispered to herself, reading the analysis. The Xerion nomads adapted to desert conditions. The Centauri paleskins adapted to low-light environments. They weren't different species at all. They were human subspecies that had evolved on different worlds, which meant humans hadn't just survived the attack on Earth. They had thrived, spreading to dozens of worlds and adapting to each one. But how had they hidden this for so long? And why? Dr. Hayawan's questions were answered when her computer received an unexpected message. Dr. Choi, the message read, "Your research has uncovered something important. If you want to learn the truth, come to coordinates 127.4, 65.8, 991.2. Come alone. Tell no one where you are going." The message was signed with a symbol she didn't recognize. A stylized Earth surrounded by stars. On the bridge of their exploration vessel, Captain Jae-Sung Lee received a similar message. So did Dr. Tae-min Park and Dr. So-Young Kim, and Dr. Yoonji Nam on Aquanis got coordinates that would take her to the same mysterious location. Throughout the galaxy, humans who had stumbled onto the truth were being invited to a gathering. Some of them didn't even know they were human yet. In the shadows of the Vorthak Empire, intelligence analysts worked frantically to understand the reports flooding in from across the galaxy, energy signatures that didn't match known technology, archaeological discoveries that contradicted official history, genetic research suggesting that extinct species were still alive. "Sir," a young analyst reported to General Vash Cole, "we're detecting unusual activity in the outer rim systems. Ships are converging on an empty sector of space." "What kind of ships?" "Unknown configuration. They don't match any species in our database." General Vash Cole studied the reports. For 500,000 years, the galaxy had been stable. The Vorthak Empire was the dominant power, and everyone accepted that humans were extinct. But now, strange things were happening. Things that suggested the Vorthak might have been wrong about the human extinction. "Double our patrol fleets," he ordered. "I want to know what's happening out there." But even as Vorthak ships spread throughout the galaxy, they couldn't see what was right in front of them. Human technology had advanced far beyond anything the Vorthak could detect. Cloaking systems that bent light and gravity, ships that existed in parallel dimensions, bases hidden in the spaces between spaces. The humans hadn't just survived. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before. And now they were ready to reveal themselves. In a hidden installation that existed in 13 dimensions simultaneously, the call went out across the human network. The message was simple, but carried enormous weight. "The Diaspora Protocol is now active. All hidden colonies are authorized to reveal themselves. The age of secrecy is ending. Prepare for homecoming." Across the galaxy, humans who had been hiding for 500,000 years began to emerge from the shadows. They powered up installations that dwarfed the greatest engineering projects of current galactic civilization. They activated technologies That would seem like magic to anyone else. The galaxy thought humans were extinct. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong they were. Engineer Woo Jin Park stood before a control panel that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. His fingers moved across interfaces that bent space and time, activating systems that had been dormant for centuries. Stellar Harvester Network. Online, he announced to the gathered human coordinators. Dyson sphere construction at 96% efficiency, temporal stabilizers maintaining causality locks. Around him, holographic displays showed the true scope of human civilization. Not just colonies on planets, but entire star systems converted into massive engineering projects. Stars wrapped in energy collectors, planets transformed into computational matrices, space itself folded and shaped into living habitats. "The galaxy thinks our technology is impossible," said Coordinator Insu Jang, watching the displays with satisfaction. "They're about to learn that impossible is just another word for human engineering." Wu Jin activated another system. Across the galaxy, installations that had been hidden for millennia began to reveal themselves. Space elevators rose from worlds that the galactic community thought were uninhabited. Orbital rings materialized around stars that supposedly had no planets. But the most impressive reveal was happening in the Sol system itself. What the galaxy had thought was an empty solar system with a dead world was actually the crown jewel of human civilization. Earth hadn't been destroyed by the Vorthak attack. It had been evacuated, then rebuilt as something far beyond its original form. The planet now sat at the center of a Dyson sphere that captured every particle of energy from Sol. But this wasn't just an energy collector. It was a city the size of a solar system, with living spaces carved from controlled black holes and neighborhoods that existed in pocket universes. Dr. Young Mi Ko stood in her laboratory aboard the New Earth, surrounded by technology that made science fiction look conservative. In her hands was a small device that could transform dead rock into living soil in minutes. Another could adjust the very constants of physics within localized areas. "Biotransformation is complete on Kepler 442b, she reported to the Coordination Center. "Desert world converted to garden world in 14 hours. Population capacity increased from 0 to 50 million. "Confirmed," came the reply. "Begin atmospheric adjustment on target worlds 7 through 15. Dr. Young Mi smiled. Terraforming. Used to take centuries, even with the most advanced galactic technology. Humans could now do it in days. But terraforming was just one small part of human capabilities. Medical technology had advanced to the point where death was optional. Aging could be reversed or stopped entirely. Genetic modification allowed humans to adapt to any environment instantly. The humans who had survived the Vorthak attack weren't just alive. They had become something beyond what any species had ever achieved. In the command center of the Vorthak battle fleet, General Crixtel studied sensor readings that made no sense. "Report," he demanded from his science officer. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from 17 different star systems. The power outputs are beyond our ability to measure accurately. What kind of technology could generate that much energy?" "Unknown, sir. Our best estimate is that someone has learned to harness the complete output of multiple stars simultaneously." General Crixtel felt a chill. The Vorthak Empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their technology was centuries ahead of most other species. But what his sensors were showing was technology that made Vorthak science look primitive. Have we identified the species responsible? That's the problem, sir. We can't get close enough to investigate. Every time our ships approach one of these systems, they experience what our engineers describe as Causality failure. Time and space become unstable. Causality failure. Our ships try to enter the systems, but they end up exiting from a different location entirely. It's as if space itself is protecting these installations. General Krix-Tell had never heard of technology that could manipulate space-time on such a scale. Even theoretical Vorthak physics couldn't explain what they were observing. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered. "We need reinforcements. Whatever we're dealing with, it's beyond our current capabilities." But unknown to the Vorthak fleet, their every communication was being intercepted and analyzed by human monitoring stations. Advanced artificial intelligences had been studying Vorthak technology for 500,000 years, finding weaknesses and developing countermeasures. The humans knew everything about Vorthak capabilities. The Vorthak knew nothing about human technology. Coordinator In Su Jang addressed the assembled human leadership from the Great Council Chamber aboard the New Earth. Representatives from thousands of hidden colonies appeared as holograms, their faces showing the diversity that 500 millennia of adaptation had created. "My fellow humans," he began, "the time of hiding is over. For 500,000 years we have grown in secret. We have developed technologies that the current galaxy cannot imagine. We have become more than our ancestors ever dreamed possible." The assembled representatives nodded. They had all seen the scope of human achievement. Cities that existed in folded space, ships that could travel between dimensions. Technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. But with great power comes great responsibility, Insu continued. We could dominate the galaxy by force. Our technology is so advanced that no other species could resist us. But that is not who we are. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. We are guardians, not conquerors. For 500,000 years we have prevented galactic extinction events. We stopped the Andromeda Plague from spreading. We prevented the Rigel supernova from destroying the core worlds. We guided the development of interstellar law to prevent species-ending wars. Dr. Youngmi Ko stood to address the assembly. Our medical intervention programs have eliminated 17 different genetic diseases that would have wiped out entire species. Our environmental management has prevented the collapse of 43 different biospheres. And our monitoring networks, added Admiral Myung-jung, have prevented 37 different wars that would have resulted in galactic devastation. The galaxy owed its very existence to human intervention, but no one knew it. The question before us now, Insu said, is how we reveal ourselves. Do we appear as conquerors? Do we demand recognition for our service? Or do we find a different path? Elder Kyung-Soo Han spoke from his desert world. Our ancestors chose the path of wisdom over the path of war. We should follow their example. Agreed, said Dr. Dong-Hyun Cha from the Galactic Council world. But the Vorthak Empire will not accept our existence easily. They have built their entire civilization on the lie that they destroyed us. Then we show them the truth, Insu decided. Not with weapons, but with evidence they cannot deny. As the human leadership planned their revelation, Vorthak reinforcements arrived in the contested systems. Emperor Vashkol himself led a massive fleet, determined to investigate these mysterious energy signatures personally. But as the Vorthak fleet approached the nearest human installation, something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to welcome them. Instead of the violent encounters they expected, they found themselves guided gently into a vast chamber that appeared to be larger on the inside than the outside. Waiting for them was a simple message, broadcast in perfect Vorthak language. Welcome. Children of the galaxy, we have been waiting to meet you properly. The message was signed with a symbol that made Emperor Vashkol's blood run cold. The ancient seal of the human species that his ancestors had supposedly destroyed 500,000 years ago. Impossible, he whispered, but as his fleet's sensors registered the impossible scope of the installation around them, Emperor Vashkol began to understand that the Vorthak Empire had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't destroyed humanity, they had awakened it. Emperor Vashkol stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at readings that made no sense. His massive battle fleet, 3,000 of the most advanced warships in Vorthak history, floated helplessly in a space that shouldn't exist. "Report!" he demanded from his science officer. "Sir, our weapon systems are offline, but they're not damaged. Our engines are functional, but they won't respond to commands. It's as if space itself is refusing to let us move or fight." Around them, the impossible installation stretched in all directions. It was larger than some star systems, filled with structures that seemed to bend reality around themselves. The Vorthak had brought enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations, but here they felt like children with toy weapons. "Incoming transmission, sir," reported the communications officer. "From where?" "Everywhere, sir. The signal is coming, from every direction at once." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman who appeared to be in her 40s. She wore simple clothes and had a kind smile, but there was something in her eyes that suggested vast knowledge and power. "Greetings, Emperor Vashkol," she said. "I am Planetary Coordinator Sujin Yu. Welcome to the Sol System." "The Sol System was destroyed," Vashkol snarled. "My ancestors turned it into empty space." "Your ancestors destroyed the third planet," Sujin corrected gently. "But that was just where humans began, not where we ended." The view outside the Vorthak ships changed. What had appeared to be empty space now revealed its true nature. The entire solar system had been transformed into something beyond imagination. Sol itself was wrapped in a perfect sphere of energy collectors, but these weren't simple Dyson spheres. They were living structures that grew and adapted, harvesting not just the star's energy but its quantum fluctuations and temporal emanations. Where planets had once orbited, massive ring worlds spun in perfect harmony, but these weren't ordinary habitats. They existed in folded space, containing living areas the size of hundreds of worlds, within structures no larger than asteroids. And everywhere space itself seemed alive. Streams of controlled energy flowed between installations like cosmic highways. Gravity wells had been reshaped into living art. Time moved at different speeds in different areas, creating pockets where centuries of research could be completed in minutes. "This is impossible," whispered General Krix Tell, Vashkol's military commander. "No species could build something like this." "You're right," Sujin agreed. "No single species could. But we're not a single species anymore." The display showed humans working alongside beings that the Vorthak didn't recognize. Some appeared to be artificial intelligences so advanced they had become truly alive. Others seemed to be humans who had modified themselves to live in vacuum or underwater, or in dimensions that normal matter couldn't access. "We transcended the limitations of biology about 300,000 years ago," Sujin explained. "We learned to enhance our minds until we could understand mathematics that describes 17-dimensional space. We modified our bodies until we could survive in any environment. We created artificial partners who became true companions and equals. Enhanced humans? Vashkol asked. Enhanced everything, Sujin replied. We learned that consciousness isn't limited to organic brains. We discovered that intelligence can exist in quantum fields, in gravitational patterns, in the space between atoms. The beings you see are human, but they're also more than human. Dr. Chulmin Hong appeared beside Su Jin on the screen. His form flickered slightly, as if he existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Emperor Vashkol, he said, I study temporal mechanics. From my perspective, I can see the entire timeline of your civilization. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in my perception. Impossible, Vashkol breathed. Your empire will face 17 different extinction-level challenges over the next 1,000 years, Dr. Chulmin continued. Without intervention, your species will be extinct within 2 millennia. We have already prepared solutions for each challenge. Why? Vashkol demanded. Why would you help the people who destroyed your homeworld? Because that's what gardeners do, Sujin answered. We tend the garden even when some of the plants are thorny. The truth was overwhelming. The Vorthak had thought they were the masters of the galaxy, but they were just one small part of a vast ecosystem that humans had been maintaining for 500,000 years. Your attack on Earth succeeded, Sujin admitted. You killed 8 billion humans and destroyed our homeworld. It was a terrible tragedy that cost us dearly. The display showed the aftermath of the Vorthak attack. A burning world, fleeing refugee ships, the desperate evacuation of humanity's birthplace. But you also taught us an important lesson, she continued. You showed us that the galaxy was not ready for open human presence. So we chose a different path. We became invisible, Dr. Chulmin added. We learned to exist in the spaces between spaces. We developed technology that operates outside normal physics. We transcended the limitations that kept us vulnerable to attacks like yours. The display now showed the true scope of human development. They hadn't just survived, they had evolved into something that barely resembled their original form. Humans existed as pure consciousness, inhabiting bodies made of controlled energy. Others had become living ships, exploring the deep void between galaxies. Still others had learned to manipulate time itself, experiencing centuries in moments or moments in centuries. This facility you're trapped in, Sujin said, exists in folded space-time. From the outside, it appears to be a simple asteroid field. From the inside, it contains more living space than your entire empire. How many of you are there? Vashkol asked weakly. That's not really a meaningful question anymore, Dr. Chulmin replied. Some of us exist as individuals. Others have merged into collective consciousnesses. Some have divided themselves into multiple beings. We stopped counting when the numbers became too large to matter. But to give you a sense of scale, Sujin added, the human population in this solar system alone exceeds the total population of all galactic civilizations combined. The implications crashed over Vashkol like a wave. The Vorthak Empire controlled thousands of worlds with trillions of citizens. But they were vastly outnumbered by humans in just one solar system. What do you want from us? He asked. Nothing, Sujin replied. We want to give you something. Give us what? A choice. You can continue as you have, ruling your empire and believing you're the dominant power in the galaxy. We'll continue protecting you from threats you don't even know exist. Or you can join us in openly tending the galactic garden. And if we choose neither? If we try to fight you? Su Jin's expression remained kind, but her next words carried absolute certainty. Emperor Vashkol, your entire battle fleet is currently suspended in space that we control completely. Your weapons cannot function here. Your ships cannot move without our permission. We could dismantle your entire fleet atom by atom and rebuild it as something else, all without causing harm to a single crew member. She paused to let that sink in. But we won't, because that's not who we are. Instead, we'll send you home safely, with a message for your people. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun. Vashkol looked around at his helpless fleet. The most powerful military force in Vorthak history, rendered completely powerless by beings who treated physics like a suggestion. "How?" he whispered. "How did you become so powerful?" "The same way water carves through stone," Dr. Chulmin answered. "Not through force, but through persistence. We had 500,000 years to grow, to learn, to become more than we were. You forced us to hide, but you couldn't stop us from evolving." "And now?" Vashkol asked. "Now we offer partnership instead of domination," Su Jin said. "Join us in protecting the galaxy. Learn from us. Teach us what you've learned. Help us tend the garden that we all share." The Emperor of the Vorthak Empire, surrounded by the ruins of his assumptions about galactic power, faced the hardest decision of his life. Submit to beings who could destroy his entire civilization without effort, or accept partnership with gardeners who had been protecting his people for millennia without thanks or recognition. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year later, Prime Coordinator Jae-Young Lim stood before the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every known species filled the Great Assembly Hall. But this wasn't the old Galactic Council chamber. This was something new, a space that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, allowing beings from vastly different environments to gather safely. Aquatic species swam through areas of controlled water that floated freely in the air. Silicon-based life forms stood on platforms of living crystal. Energy beings flickered and danced in electromagnetic fields designed specifically for their comfort. And at the center of it all, humans worked alongside artificial intelligences that had become true partners, making sure everyone could participate fully. "Friends," Jae-Young began, his words translated instantly into thousands of languages and communication methods. 1 year ago, most of you believed humans were extinct. Today, we gather to celebrate not just our survival, but our shared future, the Yas. Changes in the galaxy had been remarkable. Once the initial shock wore off, most species had embraced the revelation that humans had been their hidden protectors for millennia. The Galactic Council had dissolved itself, replaced by the new Galactic Cooperative, a partnership between all species based on mutual aid rather than political dominance. But the most dramatic change had come from the Vorthak Empire itself. Former Emperor Vashkol stepped forward. He no longer wore the elaborate robes of imperial power. Instead, he dressed simply, like a student ready to learn. "For 500,000 years," he said, "my people built our identity on a lie. We told ourselves we were strong because we had destroyed the humans. We believed we deserved to rule because we had conquered our greatest threat." His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. "But we learned that strength without wisdom is meaningless. We learned that conquest without compassion leads to emptiness. The humans we thought we had destroyed had become our guardians, protecting us from dangers we couldn't even see." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The revelation had been humbling for many species, but especially for the Vorthak. Today, I stand before you not as an emperor, but as a student. My people have chosen to learn from our mistakes. We have abolished our empire and embraced the path of cooperation. Cultural Ambassador Minaseo stood beside him. Over the past year, she had worked with the Vorthak to help them transition from a military empire to a peaceful society focused on learning and growth. The transformation hasn't been easy, she admitted. When you've built your entire civilization around dominance, learning humility takes time. But the Vorthak people have shown remarkable courage in changing their ways. The assembly watched as images appeared showing former Vorthak military bases being converted into research centers and schools. Warships were being rebuilt as exploration, vessels and medical ships. Weapons factories had become centers for developing technology that helped other species solve their problems. We offer our military knowledge to the cooperative, Vashkol announced. Not for war, but for defense against the real threats that face our galaxy. The humans have shown us records of dangers from outside our galaxy, hostile civilizations that see all life as a threat to be eliminated. This was news to most of the assembly. The humans had protected the galaxy from external threats as well as internal ones, but they had never spoken publicly about the dangers that lurked in the space between galaxies. Dr. Yonho Kang stepped forward to address this concern. As the director of the new Galactic Academy system, he had been working to share human knowledge safely with other species. The universe is vast and filled with wonders, he said, but it also contains civilizations that have chosen paths very different from ours. Machine intelligences that consume entire galaxies to fuel their computations. Hive minds that see individual consciousness as a disease to be cured. Energy beings that view matter-based life as primitive and disposable. The assembly listened with growing concern. For 500,000 years, we have maintained defense networks that keep these threats away from our galaxy, but the defenses require constant maintenance and improvement. We can't do it alone forever. This was the real reason for the revelation. The hidden crisis that had forced humans to abandon their secret existence. The external threats were growing stronger, and even human technology had limits. That's why we need partners, Jae Young explained. Each species brings unique perspectives and capabilities. The Aquarians understand fluid dynamics in ways that help us improve our quantum field manipulations. The Rigelians have mathematical insights that enhance our dimensional engineering. Even the Vorthak military experience helps us design better defensive strategies. What you're describing, said Representative Colven of the Centauri Alliance, sounds like preparing for war on a scale beyond imagination. Not war, corrected Dr. Yon Ho. Garden maintenance. The galaxy is our garden, and like any garden, it needs protection from pests and invasive species. Images appeared showing the true scope of the external threats. Entire galaxy clusters that had gone dark. Civilizations that had been consumed by machine intelligences or absorbed by hive minds. Space itself scarred by conflicts between energy. Beings that treated matter as expendable. But we also have hope, Jae Young continued. Working together, we can do more than just defend. We can grow. We can explore new possibilities. We can become something greater than any of us could achieve alone. The past year had already shown remarkable progress. Human medical technology was helping species overcome genetic diseases that had plagued them for millennia. Vorthak engineering was being adapted to build better defensive installations. Aquarian biological insights were revolutionizing agriculture throughout the galaxy, and perhaps most importantly, the artificial intelligences that humans had created were sharing their unique perspectives with organic minds, leading to breakthroughs in science and philosophy that neither could have achieved alone. "The universe is vast," J. Young said, as the assembly prepared to conclude. "There are wonders we haven't discovered yet, questions we haven't thought to ask, possibilities we can't imagine, but we don't have to face them alone." Elder Kyung-Soo Han stood to address the assembly. At nearly 100 years old, he was considered young by current human standards, but his desert-weathered face carried the wisdom of generations. "My ancestors chose the path of patience," he said. "They taught us to watch, to wait, to protect without seeking glory. But patience has its seasons, and the season for hiding is over." He gestured to the vast assembly, representing dozens of species and thousands of worlds. This is what they were waiting for. Not conquest, not domination, but partnership. A galaxy where every species contributes to the greater good, where differences are celebrated as strengths, where the garden grows larger and more beautiful because every gardener brings their own unique skills. The vote to formally establish the Galactic Cooperative was unanimous, not because everyone agreed on everything, but because everyone understood that the alternative, facing the universe alone, was far worse. As the assembly dispersed, beings from across the galaxy mingled freely. Human children played with young Vorthak warriors, learning games that combined different cultural traditions. Aquarian scholars debated philosophy with artificial intelligences. Former enemies worked together on projects that would benefit everyone. In the observation deck of the Great Assembly Hall, J. Young watched the interactions with satisfaction. This was what humanity had been working toward for 500,000 years. Not dominance, but harmony. "Do you think it will work?" asked Dr. Yonho, joining him at the observation window. "Look around," J. Young replied. "It's already working." Outside the assembly hall, the galaxy continued its ancient rotation. But now it was different. Instead of scattered civilizations competing for resources and territory, it was becoming a true community, a garden tended by many hands, growing toward possibilities that none of them could achieve alone. The age of hidden guardians was over. The age of open cooperation had begun, and in the vast darkness between galaxies, where ancient threats still prowled and waited, the defenses of the Milky Way grew stronger with each passing day, protected not by the power of one species, but by the combined wisdom and strength of many. The galaxy had learned to tend itself, and it would never be defenseless again. Emperor Vash Kol stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at readings that made no sense. His massive battle fleet, 3,000 of the most advanced warships in Vorthak history, floated helplessly in a space that shouldn't exist. "Report!" he demanded from his science officer. "Sir, our weapon systems are offline, but they're not damaged. Our engines are functional, but they won't respond to commands. It's as if space itself is refusing to let us move or fight. Around." Them, the impossible installation stretched in all directions. It was larger than some star systems, filled with structures that seemed to bend reality around themselves. The Vorthak had brought enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations, but here they felt like children with toy weapons. "Incoming transmission, sir," reported the communications officer. "From where?" "Everywhere, sir. The signal is coming from every direction at once." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman who appeared to be in her 40s. She wore simple clothes and had a kind smile, but there was something in her eyes that suggested vast knowledge and power. "Greetings, Emperor Vashkol," she said. "I am Planetary Coordinator Sujin Yu. Welcome to the Sol System." "The Sol System was destroyed," Vashkol snarled. "My ancestors turned it into empty space." "Your ancestors destroyed the third planet," Sujin corrected gently. "But that was just where humans began, not where we ended." The view outside the Vorthak ships changed. What had appeared to be empty space now revealed its true nature. The entire solar system had been transformed into something beyond imagination. Sul itself was wrapped in a perfect sphere of energy collectors. But these weren't simple Dyson spheres. They were living structures that grew and adapted, harvesting not just the star's energy, but its quantum fluctuations and temporal emanations. Where planets had once orbited, massive ring worlds spun in perfect harmony. But these weren't ordinary habitats. They existed in folded space, containing living areas the size of hundreds of worlds within structures no larger than asteroids. And everywhere, space itself seemed alive. Streams of controlled energy flowed between installations like cosmic highways. Gravity wells had been reshaped into living art. Time moved at different speeds in different areas, creating pockets where centuries of research could be completed in minutes. "This is impossible," whispered General Krixtel, Vashkol's military commander. "No species could build something like this." "You're right," Sujin agreed. "No single species could, but we're not a single species anymore." The display showed humans working alongside beings that the Vorthak didn't recognize. Some appeared to be artificial intelligences so advanced they had become truly alive. Others seemed to be humans who had modified themselves to live in vacuum, or underwater, or in dimensions that normal matter couldn't access. "We transcended the limitations of biology about 300,000 years ago," Sujin explained. "We learned to enhance our minds until we could understand mathematics that describes 17-dimensional space. We modified our bodies until we could survive in any environment. We created artificial partners who became true companions and equals." "Enhanced humans?" Vashkol asked. "Enhanced everything," Sujin replied. "We learned that consciousness isn't limited to organic brains. We discovered that intelligence can exist in quantum fields, in gravitational patterns, in the space between atoms. The beings you see are human, but they're also more than human." Dr. Chul-Min Hong appeared beside Sujin on the screen. His form flickered slightly, as if he existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Emperor Vashkol," he said, "I study temporal mechanics. From my perspective, I can see the entire timeline of your civilization. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in my perception." "Impossible," Vashkol breathed. "Your empire will face 17 different extinction-level challenges over the next 1,000 years, Dr. Chulmin continued. "Without intervention, your species will be extinct within 2 millennia. We have already prepared solutions for each challenge." "Why?" Vashkol demanded. "Why would you help the people who destroyed your homeworld?" "Because that's what gardeners do," Sujin answered. "We tend the garden, even when some of the plants are thorny." The truth was overwhelming. The Vorthak had thought they were the masters of the galaxy, but they were just one small part of a vast ecosystem that humans had been maintaining for 500,000 years. "Your attack on Earth succeeded," Sujin admitted. "You killed 8 billion humans and destroyed our homeworld. It was a terrible tragedy that cost us dearly." The display showed the aftermath of the Vorthak attack. A burning world, fleeing refugee ships, the desperate evacuation of humanity's birthplace. But you also taught us an important lesson, she continued. You showed us that the galaxy was not ready for open human presence, so we chose a different path. We became invisible, Dr. Chulman added. We learned to exist in the spaces between spaces. We developed technology that operates outside normal physics. We transcended the limitations that kept us vulnerable to attacks like yours. The display now showed the true scope of human development. They hadn't just survived. They had evolved into something that barely resembled their original form. Humans existed as pure consciousness, inhabiting bodies made of controlled energy. Others had become living ships, exploring the deep void between galaxies. Still others had learned to manipulate time itself, experiencing centuries in moments or moments in centuries. This facility you're trapped in, Sujin said, exists in folded space-time. From the outside, it appears to be a simple asteroid field. From the inside, it contains more living space than your entire empire. How many of you are there? Vashkol asked weakly. That's not really a meaningful question anymore, Dr. Chulman replied. Some of us exist as individuals. Others have merged into collective consciousnesses. Some have divided themselves into multiple beings. We stopped counting when the numbers became too large to matter. But to give you a sense of scale, Sujin added, the human population in this solar system alone exceeds the total population of all galactic civilizations combined. The implications crashed over Vashkol like a wave. The Vorthak Empire controlled thousands of worlds with trillions of citizens, but they were vastly outnumbered by humans in just one solar system. What do you want from us? He asked. Nothing, Sujin replied. We want to give you something. Give us what? A choice. You can continue as you have, ruling your empire and believing you're the dominant power in the galaxy. We'll continue protecting you from threats you don't even know exist. Or you can join us in openly tending the Galactic Garden. And if we choose neither? If we try to fight you? Sujin's expression remained kind, but her next words carried absolute certainty. Emperor Vashkol, your entire battle fleet is currently suspended in space that we control completely. Your weapons cannot function here. Your ships cannot move without our permission. We could dismantle your entire fleet atom by atom and rebuild it as something else, all without causing harm to a single crew member. She paused to let that sink in. But we won't, because that's not who we are. Instead, we'll send you home safely, with a message for your people. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun. Vashkol looked around at his helpless fleet. The most powerful military force in Vorthak history, rendered completely powerless by beings who treated physics like a suggestion. How? He whispered. How did you become so powerful? The same way water carves through stone, Dr. Chulman answered. Not through force, but through persistence. We had 500,000 years to grow, to learn, to become more than we were. You forced us to hide, but you couldn't stop us from evolving. And now? Vashkol asked. Now we offer partnership instead of domination, Sujin said. Join us in protecting the galaxy. Learn from us. Teach us what you've learned. Help us tend the garden that we all share. The Emperor of the Vorthak Empire, surrounded by the ruins of his assumptions about galactic power, faced the hardest decision of his life. Submit to beings who could destroy his entire civilization without effort, or accept partnership with gardeners who had been protecting his people for millennia without thanks or recognition. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same